What we're seeing right now is the federal government under Donald Trump doing more to deal with the problems in Washington state than our elected leaders here are. So, of course, on Monday night, you had left-wing extremists take over a building, the engineering building on the campus of the University of Washington. How many hours have gone by? 36, 40 hours at this point? Yeah, roughly. And our governor hasn't said anything. The mayor of Seattle hasn't said anything. You know who has said something? The Trump administration. Sending a clear message about what happened on our campus here in our state. They care more about calling out this conduct, about condemning this conduct, and most importantly, about doing something about this conduct. So the Department of Education and the Department of Health and Human Services sent out a joint press release saying that they are initiating a review of anti-Semitic activity at the University of Washington. I'll just read a little bit from this. I won't read the full thing. U.S. Secretary of Education Linda McMahon, the violence and chaos that ensued on University of Washington's campus is yet another horrifying display of the anti-Semitic harassment and lawlessness which has characterized many of our nation's elite campuses over the last several years. This destructive behavior is unacceptable. Our task force will not allow these so-called protesters to disrupt campus life and deprive students, especially Jewish students who live in fear on campus, of their equal opportunity protections and civil rights. HHS Secretary Robert Kennedy said, "No institution that tolerates violence, harassment, or the open intimidation of Jewish students should expect to receive billions in taxpayer support." This isn't about politics. It's about whether a federally funded university is upholding the law, protecting civil rights, and fostering a safe environment for all students. How hard is that? Apparently pretty hard if you're a Washington state Democrat. But not only do we have the federal government and Donald Trump doing more to help the state of Washington than the freaking governor of the state of Washington and then the party that's in power in the state of Washington, but just the opposite is happening here. They're actually condoning it, many of them. And silence is condoning it. So even the ones who haven't said something, that's condoning it. But I'm talking about actively condoning it, supporting it. This is, honest to God, a post yesterday from State Representative Sean Scott, a socialist who was elected to represent a part of Seattle, the very city where that campus is. He says, "I've gotten confirmation from Super UW, which is the group that was responsible for that destruction, that the arrested protesters have all been released. If they need additional support, I'll do my best to amplify how we may be able to help." So we have a state lawmaker who out in the open says that he wants to help what amounts to domestic terrorists. And for people who say this isn't terrorism, that's too, what is the definition of terrorism? For me, the definition of terrorism is a group of individuals or an individual that pursues violence to push their political or ideological agenda. That's the motivation of very well-known terror groups. They want obedience to a religion, to an ideology, to a political agenda, and they believe that carrying out violence in the pursuit of that agenda will help. That's terrorism. So these were pro-Palestine, but really just anti-Semitic, far-left extremists who carried out violence, lit fires, were confronted with police, barricaded themselves in a public building. Those are terrorists. By definition, look up the definition of terrorist. Those are terrorists. And we have a state representative who says, "I'll do what I can to help them." We've reached out to his office, by the way. Nicole, any response yet? Didn't think so.
No.
Yeah, shock of the century. And it's not a surprise. We warned about Sean Scott when he was up for election this last cycle. He was just elected. He had come out and had press conferences in solidarity with the people who were blocking key infrastructure like I-5 and access to Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, which again should have resulted in federal charges, but these people were just completely let off the hook. And he's basically, this is a proud tradition. This is a guy who, when he was running for city council several years ago, said he thinks every cop is racist. And this is the person who Seattleites sent to Olympia, not only to represent their interests, but to pass laws for the entire state of Washington. And he is now saying he'll do what he can to support terrorists who, and before we knew this next thing, he had put this out. I don't think it changes anything, but we learned from UW yesterday, $1 million in damages to that engineering building. And you might think, how is that possible? Well, it's a brand new building with some brand new, very expensive engineering equipment for students to use and learn on. Smashed it. These are pictures from Chris Daniels over at Como TV. University of Washington says in total, damage done, including to windows and things that were broken and furniture, but also to this very expensive engineering equipment, more than $1 million, which is very clearly felony destruction of property. Will any of them face felony destruction of property charges? I don't know. I guess they have to prove who did it. But we know right now they're facing slap on the wrist misdemeanors. Apparently UW police, and they told us this morning, because none of the cases that were referred or none of the arrests that were made were for felony property damage. So I think police, the university probably went in there and did an assessment of how many things had been destroyed. And we're told by UW this morning they're continuing their investigation. And if they can piece evidence together that warrants asking prosecutors to charge for felony property, again, they have to figure out who it was. And this building, we learned, the state legislature just gave UW new funding for that building. Your tax dollars paid for those machines that were destroyed on Monday. And we have a state lawmaker, a public servant, who is using his platforms and his power and influence to say he's going to help in any way he can the people who did it. How is that not enough to kick him out of office? Of course, Seattle voters would have to have the will to do that. And Lord knows if you send a socialist with a well-documented history of supporting far-left extremist terrorists, they're probably not going to. But how is it acceptable? How is it okay? And we reached out as well, I believe, to the Speaker of the House, Lori Jenkins. How many times when there's been a Republican who does something dumb, or a Republican member of the state House, the state Senate, or Democrats come out and the state Republican leaders need to condemn this person, and they always do when it's justified. So House Speaker Lori Jenkins, we've emailed your office for comment. Haven't heard back, right? Yeah, didn't think so. Are you going to condemn this conduct by your caucus member, condoning domestic terrorism and the destruction of more than $1 million in state property that our tax money went to? And if you don't, then you've lost all semblance of seriousness. Then you are a hypocrite to the extreme. And I know that those things are true, but gosh, every once in a while, I hope that you'll do the right thing. I mean, how hard is it genuinely to come out and to condemn what is clearly wrong, absent any consideration for political party? It's one of the primary issues in this country on the right and left. We just see it here more on the left because we live in a very blue state where the far left does really crazy stuff. But let's be honest. I mean, you go online and people will excuse all measure of behavior on the right if they support Trump or whatever it is. And the left will, this is totally fine. We can break $1 million worth of equipment because we're fighting for Palestine. And you've got the state's top Democrats who stay silent about it as if they ever would do that. If it were somebody on the right who perpetrated it, give me a break. And you guys know this. You know this. And then you've got the UW president who's on her way out, obviously. But, she's put out what is a strong statement. But it's like 2 years too late. You remember how she reacted to the takeover of the Quad by these anti-Semites and the destruction of buildings. I mean, anti-Semitic graffiti all over the beautiful old buildings. And it was like, tisk, tisk, it's okay. You can stay, no big deal. I had to take a drink of water because I'm yelling. You can stay, no big deal. Eventually we'll clear you out. And then she started to get a little more upset when they targeted her home and her cars for vandalism. And then it was like, okay, now I'm a little more upset. And now she puts out this statement about what happened on Monday. This was no peaceful protest in support of Palestinian rights or against the war in Gaza. I condemn this dangerous, violent, and illegal building occupation and related vandalism. I also condemn, in the strongest terms, the group's statements celebrating the October 7th, 2023 attack. The university will not be intimidated by this sort of horrific and destructive behavior and will not engage in dialogue with any group using or condoning such destructive tactics. The problem is you have in the past. When you say, we will not be intimidated by it, you have been in the past, didn't do anything about it. So that shows, that gives them, that emboldens them, right? We will not engage in dialogue. You have in the past, you literally held meetings with them. Like, let's have a summit with these domestic terrorists. Absolutely ridiculous. But now you want to draw a big line in the sand and say, we won't tolerate this. You think they believe you? No. And then we'll see what happens with charges, right? Are UW police going to continue to investigate? I mean, honestly, are they going to continue to refer more serious charges? We clearly should be looking at felonies here. Because too many times these left-wing morons, terrorists, have gotten away with way too much over the last 15 years. Light cop cars on fire? A few of you might get in trouble, but we'll reach a sweet plea deal with you. Take over a police precinct? No big deal. Have it. It's yours. Block I-5 for 5 hours, blocking ambulances and people who are having medical emergencies? That's okay. We'll send in our police negotiating team to sit there and laugh with you on the roadway and come to a good conclusion. Block access to Seattle-Tacoma International Airport so pilots have to literally get out of their car and walk to be able to make sure they get to their plane on time? No charges. It's not a big deal. So you can't foster this kind of environment and embolden them and embolden them and embolden them and don't expect their behavior to get continuously worse. Of course it will. So at some point there have to be real consequences, and maybe it's just going to have to be the feds that do it. Put them in federal prison. Find some sort of, I don't know if it's RICO, racketeering, whatever it is for these Antifa types. You can prove coordination in the pursuit of a cause. You could probably prove some money that's going around in these organizations to support their efforts. There has to be some sort of massive federal investigation, especially in Portland and Seattle, that can take down the Antifa crazies and put them in federal prison for a very, very long time. But it also starts with who condemns it. Now, I said, and I've been all over social media, and so have others, where's Bob Ferguson? Where's the mayor of Seattle? They were having press conferences on other things or putting press releases out on other things. How could they not have said anything? It's so simple. So 36 hours of pressure, we finally got a statement from Attorney General Nick Brown. His office put out this really weird graphics where it's like this picture of him, like this kind of hero picture, like I'm so tough. Yeah, it took you 36 hours of public shaming to say this. Our office has been closely monitoring the disturbing events at the University of Washington this week in consultation with our client, the university. It is clear that there was substantial damage to public property and threats to the overall safety of the university community. I am thankful that those responsible were arrested and, if found guilty, should be held accountable. I fully and always support people's right to protest and to express their views. Indeed, it is foundational to our democracy. But everyone has a right to be safe on campus, and UW must enforce the law. What would have stopped you from saying that on Monday night? Or even, okay, I'll be generous, maybe you were sleeping, Tuesday morning? Nothing. Public shaming is what changed it. And so when it takes 36 hours of public shaming, you can forgive me if I don't take you very seriously. Nick Brown, to me, has been the biggest disappointment of the 2024 election. He came in here, he sat down with us, he acted reasonable. I mean, he's still, very, very along the lines of Bob Ferguson, very TDS, very anti-Second Amendment and all of those things. So certainly we didn't agree politically on an awful lot. But, he tried to come across as very reasonable. He's not reasonable. And you know what? I don't even know what he is. I don't even know who he really is. I think, just like Bob Ferguson, he is who he thinks he needs to be to get ahead. And what he saw is an attorney general who came before him in Bob Ferguson, who spent 5 years in full-blown TDS mode, suing Donald Trump at every available opportunity, ignoring anything bad that happened on the left or was perpetrated by Democrats. And Bob Ferguson was rewarded with the governor's mansion. So why would Nick Brown not just do the exact same thing? He's totally right to believe that voters one day will reward him for it, for his hypocrisy, and for his cowardice with the governor's office. So he's doing what voters allow him to do. Absolutely insane.